Welcome back. Today we are going to be playing World of Tanks, a game you are probably familiar with, and after I had been sponsored by World of Warships, they asked me if I wanted to do World of Tanks as well. And World of Warships was a game I was familiar with. It was a little bit of an entry point for me and a game I actually enjoyed. Then they reached out to me for this game and I thought, well, I'm not really familiar with World of Tanks, but I am familiar with other tank games and I'm pretty ass at them, so I thought, why not try this out? It seems a little bit more lenient. Why? Because you have actual health bars. So if realism is your cup of tea, this might be a little bit less for you, but it's a little bit more arcadey and it's a little bit more forgiving. It's a little bit more RNG, but the RNG is actually hard-coded into the game. So you have health bars, you have damage rolls. Things like armor, however, are always the same. The thing is that your accuracy is also kind of, well, RNG as well. So the game is a little bit different as you might be used to. However, this doesn't take away from the fact that it's still pretty good fun. The way that I combated this was by using a tank with an auto loader, so you don't have to worry about RNG, and I don't have armor, so RNG on their shot also doesn't matter. What a great way to negate most of it. The game is free to play on PC. There's an absolute metric ton of vehicles. There's about 800 tanks and this varies between artillery, light tanks, medium tanks, SPGs, so the case-made tank destroyers. And basically, if you can think of it, it is there. There's also some prototypes. There's also some wacky, well, paper tanks basically, that are just shy of having 27 barrels and 56 tracks. But all in all, the game is somewhat realistic and the models are pretty good. There's about 40 maps in this game and the maps are all kind of different. Of course, you always have some urban maps, but they're all kind of different. You have some massive open maps, but they're still all kind of different. There's always some cover, there's always lines, and you can feel that the maps are definitely made with a 3-lane system in mind, where it's not just a massive block where you can get shot from like 20 different directions. It's actually kind of playable if you know the maps. The issue is there are 40 maps and it's gonna take you a little while to actually get used to them. But you can definitely feel that the maps are somewhat purpose built and not just made to look good. If this sounds good to you, if you want to try it out, you can use my promo code COMBAT in all capitals when you download and register. And if you do that, you'll get some new goodies. This is of course only for new registers, so if you already have an account, this does not apply to you. But if you don't have an account yet and you want to sign up using my code, you will get 7 days of premium, 250,000 credits, a premium tank. It's a Cromwell B, it's a tier 6 tank, and there's 10 tiers, so you can start actually somewhere in the middle so you can try out what it feels like, other than the very low tiers of tanks, because most of the time with these kind of games the super low tiers aren't that enjoyable, and having a little bit of a mid tier is enjoyable to try out. And then you also get 3 rental tanks. Each of these are going to be used for 10 battles and then they will disappear. And this is a Tiger 131, a T78 and a Type 64. So use the combat promo code and you'll get all this stuff for free. And you can try this out in your leisurely time. Keep in mind, the 3 tanks that I named lastly are rental tanks, but they're not time locked, they are battle locked, so you can use them for 10 battles each. But what it's like to play this game. In terms of the grind, in terms of the economy, I can't actually tell you much. I got a press account, I got every vehicle in the game, and I didn't need to grind through the ranks, so I cannot tell you anything on that aspect of the game. However, the gameplay, it did take me a little bit to get used to. However, the health bars, the RNG, and the built-in RNG made it quite easy to get the hang of. You don't need to be pinpoint accurate, you don't need to know exact weak points, you do not need to be an absolute elite level gamer to get some damage done. The main thing here is knowing the maps and the mechanics of the game. The spotting, for example, is something that you can learn quite handily. It's breaking a line of sight, it's using bushes, and it's making sure that you have enough concealment. Easy as that. And if you don't get spotted, they won't be able to see you, so you are just basically invisible. Even though they can shoot you, they can still hit you. If you are not visible to them, that doesn't mean that their shells will fly right through you, but it gives visual cover, which is of course very important, because if people don't know where you are, then they don't know where they're getting shot from. And you can see right now I'm shooting, and after I shot the second shot, I got that little light bulb above my crosshair, and that means that I have been spotted. And the second that happens, I'm simply going to reposition. I can of course wait a little bit, maybe not peek out instantly, because right now I am not spotted anymore, I am not visible, so I can peek back up, I can take another quick look, and as long as I don't fire here, then I will be invisible again, so I can just kind of sit here, and you don't really get ledge peeked, if you want to call it that. If you ever shot once from a certain angle, you can never peek again in other games, because you are probably a one shot, you are maybe a light tank, or the entire team is just kind of sick of you. So by doing this, you can just routinely just kind of peek up, right, left and center. And because when you move your cannon barrel, your accuracy actually decreases, and you can see that little circle that narrows in on the small circle in the middle. That's your accuracy. So if you are moving, if you are bobbing and weaving your barrel around, then you will lack some accuracy. So if you peek in different positions, they will not see you instantly. You are able to kind of roll up over a hill and not instantly get beamed right in the lower plate. The nice thing is, if it's not something like the well, the barn as we will call it, because I'm not allowed to swear today, then yes, you are gonna be one shot with a light tank, but there's not a lot of times where you get just blasted once in this game and you instantly die. You actually see where you get shot from, you know where you got shot from, you know by what you got shot, and this makes it a little bit easier to learn the game. You might not have a kill cam after you died, other than simply just exploding, but because you are able to see where you are shot from, by what, from what angle, you can actually kind of play around it, and you can think to yourself, oh, so I got shot from that angle, the map works like this. Of course, this is not going to work in 1 or 2 games, it's going to take you quite a while to get used to it, because there are 40 maps, and knowing the maps is probably the most important part of this game. And then we get something that I myself looked kind of up to, or against I should say, something I wasn't necessarily fond of. Gold ammo, and this sounds like it's completely pay to win, and in a way it is. The rounds will have more penetration and they will make it easier to penetrate people from, say, from the front. The issue is, there are some tanks, some premiums, that are basically not penetrable with the tank you are using, and then by using gold ammo you can actually kind of contest them in the head-on. So in a way, you're kind of forced to use it, but at the same time I understand why it's frustrating, because they do cost a lot of money, at least in game currency. So if you don't have premium, if you don't have a premium tank to grind out the credits, then sure, you can obtain these, but they are not necessarily very accessible. But you can get them if you want to. I like to run a little bit of a split where I have some shells of gold to penetrate people that I can't penetrate otherwise. So I will actually have sort of an option, instead of just kind of standing there like this, being like, yeah, what do I do now? There is really no other option, so I would like to carry around a little bit of gold. You can of course run a full rack of it, but it's just obscenely expensive, and most of the time you don't really need it, so you don't really need to be running a tank full of gold rounds. You can get away with about 5 or 6 and then have the rest just normal ammo. Of course you have differences between HE and AP like you are familiar with. HE is for the lower armored vehicles, AP is of course to penetrate some armor. That's at least the 2 most common rounds, together with the APCR, that's in this case the gold ammo, which you can see on. I think there should be a little bit more of a trade-off, but this is of course a balance point that I'm not too familiar with. I don't want to go too in-depth into it, because I'm simply not that familiar with the game yet. I did play it a decent amount, I did kind of get the ropes, but I'm not a seasoned player, so I don't want to go too in-depth into it. I just want to kind of give you an overview. And then we have another point. It's the fact that it's only about tanks, and in tank games very often you have very strong power positions that can lock down the entire map. And I have addressed this slightly at the start of this video, and you see it coming in right there. It's artillery. We don't have aircraft, we do not have helicopters, all we have is artillery to get people out of power positions. The power positions in this game are not ridiculous, at least on most of the maps. You have some exceptions of course, where if you get into that position, you are basically set for the entire game. But in general the maps are kind of built around it, and you don't really have positions that can shoot at the entire map and basically be impervious to damage. But when you do have those positions, which are extremely tough to crack, instead of bum rushing them like we are right here with 4 tanks at once, we have artillery, a shell which will come down on the right there in a second. There it is. If you're wondering what those random shells, indirect fire are, that's artillery, and they are gonna make it so that if you sit stationary for too long, even if you aren't spotted, artillery will be the absolute bane of your existence. So it is kind of important to stay mobile. I know that a lot of seasoned players hate this mechanic, And I tend to agree, it's very annoying when you get shot at by someone that can't really do anything against you. But you have to keep in mind, if you are in a position, or maybe a tank that can't really be cracked, other players will feel kind of the same way as you feel towards the artillery. They really can't do anything about you either, in the position that you are in. And artillery is kind of there to balance this kind of scenario. I'm not a big fan of it, but I do completely understand why it's there, because it's simply just a way to make the game flow better, so that it doesn't turn into a massive camping fest. Now, I do agree, I find it extremely annoying, but that's because I'm someone that likes to be in a position where I am powerful. I like to be in a position where I can lock down a sector of a map. That's just the kind of player that I am. I'm a very slow and meticulous person, as you might be familiar with my channel. I'm not someone that likes to be just running around guns blazing unless I'm playing an actual FPS game. Which is kind of why I am running auto-loader tanks, because that makes it so that I can kind of go around running and gunning and not have to worry about things like artillery too much. That's half the reason. The other reason is, as I said before, if you use a light tank, it doesn't matter if the shot that they shoot is RNG, because it's going to penetrate if they hit anyway. If my shot is inaccurate, it doesn't really matter, because I get 5 more. If my shot doesn't penetrate, I get 5 more. If I don't do enough damage in the first shot, I get 5 more. And say I am in a 2v1, 3v1, I can actually somewhat contest them. If they both fire, I can get about 4 to 5 shots out, probably kill one of them before the next one fires again, which makes it so that it's a little bit more doable to have more of a game impact. It's of course very punishing, because you're probably never going to bounce any shells, and if anyone with HE, for example, or if someone thinks with a big gun, oh, that's a nice little one shot, and he is looking your way, you are probably going to be a one shot for the rest of the game after he has hit you, because you will have lost about 80% of your hit points. So, is this game for you? I couldn't tell you. Did I have decent fun? Yeah, but I also didn't have to play it for too long. I didn't have to learn the entire game. From a very casual point of view, I did enjoy it. I can imagine that if you are a very seasoned player and a very hardcore player, or maybe even someone like me in different games, that just likes to be and try the best that you can be, that the RNG factor can be somewhat disheartening, and you can feel, well, cheated sometimes, but that's just part of the game. And if that's something that kind of attracts you, then I think that this game is going to be right up your alley. It's quite different to World of Warships, as you have more cover. The game is more flowing, and you won't get punished instantly for a mistake that you made 2 minutes ago that will also take you about 2 minutes to recover from. Because you have cover, because your tank is pretty mobile, you can actually kind of move around the map and not just get absolutely blasted. A thing that I kind of struggled with in World of Warships, because the second you sailed out and you took a wrong turn, for example, and you got kind of caught with your pants down, you couldn't really get away anymore. The second you made that mistake, you are basically done. Now, of course, if you run into 5 people looking at you coming around the corner, then you're also going to die instantly. But these things are much less common in this game, and they make it so that you don't get punished as hard with slightly bad positioning. You still get some score in, you can still get some damage in, and you can still play the game. Of course, at the very start, you're probably going to suffer a little bit, and with the premiums that you can get, the rental, the tier 6 I believe it is, I don't recommend you to start using them instantly. I do recommend to play a little bit of low tier, just go through the ranks a little bit, maybe rank 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, and then think to yourself, okay, I'm doing relatively decently. You don't have to be an absolute god-given gamer, but it's more about can I pull my own weights at these low tiers before I start playing at a higher tier, because the higher tiers are a little bit more, well, competitive. There are going to be more players that are pretty decent at the game, unless all of you of course sign up with my link right now and the entire lobby is filled with people that have about 5 matches in this entire game, but that's highly unlikely. So if you value your own sanity, you can of course play the tier 6 that you get permanently, because that one will not expire. You can kind of test the waters and see if you kind of like the gameplay, because it's a little bit faster, the tanks handle a little bit nicer. But I do think that playing rank 1, 2, 3 and maybe even 4, see if you can pull your own weight, and in that way if you start playing higher tiers you don't feel completely disheartened because you aren't performing very well. Because even at the lower tiers you will kind of learn the maps. If all of this sounds good to you, feel free to use my link, Combat, down below. You get 7 days of premium, a lot of credits. You get a premium tank and 3 premium rentals, all at tier 6. and you can kind of test the waters. If you don't like it, you can of course come to my house and slap me in the face, but I hope that you don't have to do that, and I hope that I painted a pretty decent picture of what this game is like. Of course my view is a little bit different because I'm also a relatively new player, but the people that already play this game and they know whether they like to play or not to play it are already informed, and this is not for you. This is for the people that haven't played it before, so I think as an entry level person for this game, I'm somewhat relatable. Of course, I'm not very relatable when it comes to the grind and the economy, so I can't really talk about that. So maybe that is something that kind of makes it tough for you to actually play it, but that's something you'll have to discover for yourself. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and you'll see me all tomorrow again with the next one.